This is the Creative Market Free Goods Roundup for week of June 8th, 2015. There are 6 different free goods this week, but they are free this week only. So if you see something you like when you're watching this video, just check out the description of this video where I'll place links to each one of these 6 different free items. So first up here is ProBrush. This is a pack of brushes for Adobe Illustrator, and when you open up the included Illustrator file, it'll appear blank. Just make sure you go to Window and then Brushes near the top to open up this brush window right here. That'll have all the different custom brushes for you to select from and use. And I should note on this, I'm not using a pen tablet, but if you do have a pen tablet, that's really the right way to use these, since you'll get a lot of different sensitivity options, and it'll be a lot easier for you to control the width of these different lines as you're actually drawing them. So right now mine are just taking on the most basic effects, but if you were using a pen tablet like a Wacom or a Monoprice tablet, then you would have a lot more control over the way your lines look and be able to really make some really cool stuff like that. But as you can see here, even with a mouse, I do have enough control to draw all sorts of different stuff if I wanted to. I can just very quickly make layered objects like this, even just using a mouse. But like I said before, pen tablets on this one will be super cool to use and will give you a lot of different options. But there's a ton of different brush options here to pick and choose from, and this one, for example, right here is actually a very unique brush that has a pretty cool look to it. So if you're drawing something like plant leaves, this one might come in really handy to give the outside of the plant leaf a certain stroke, and then you could change the fill on the inside to be something different. But if you're on the hunt for some custom drawing brushes for Adobe Illustrator, I would definitely recommend picking this one up and just kind of playing around with all the different options and seeing what you can make. And of course, at any time you could just highlight over one of these different stroked items and then make sure window and stroke is selected. It's near the bottom right here, and from the stroke window you can go ahead and change the weight of the stroke. So right now it's at 1 point, so I can make this either bigger or something smaller like a 1/4 point to customize how these brushes look even that much more. So if you're using something like a mouse and you're having difficulty controlling the size of these different strokes to make something that looks a bit more organic, that's one way you could do it. So you could do this line in that nice and thin stroke and then make a secondary line that goes along it, but instead of making this one a 1/4 point, I can make this up to I have to select it first. I can make this something like a 1/2 point, which will just give it a little bit more of a visual variance. But if you look at this brush window right here, here's everything that's included. There's a pretty nice selection of brushes to go in here and use. So I definitely recommend going here and experimenting around with this a little bit and kind of seeing what you can make with them. So if you're on the hunt for some Adobe Illustrator brushes, particularly for illustration, then this is a pack worth picking up. Just be sure to do it this week while it's still free. Next up is Doodle Seamless Pattern Set. This is a set of 6 different repeating patterns included in Illustrator, EPS, as well as JPEG formats. So I have the Illustrator file opened up inside Adobe Illustrator here to show it. And as you can tell, there are 6 very abstract repeating patterns to pick from. So I'll just select one right here and then drag it off to the bottom so I can very quickly tile this to be a repeat, so you can kind of see how this looks as it's actually repeating. And I'll just make these lines match up a little bit better here and then drag this down to the bottom. So right here you can see that this does seamlessly repeat very well. There are some tiny hairline lines that you can see on this, but that's just like a weird Illustrator bug that happens sometimes when you're dealing with very fine lines like that. But those won't actually show up in printing, so don't worry about that too much. But this is a pretty straightforward pack right here of 6 different repeating patterns that should work good on a ton of different stuff, and I especially think this will work good on stuff like greeting cards or on the backs of stationery, or even masked out into different shapes once you repeat it, like this one right here. I think would look really cool on the top of the header of something if it was masked out to be in the proper shape. Anything along those lines that you want to give a nice and abstract look while having a very cool visual look to it that has a polka dot pattern, but something a little bit more different and unexpected than most of them. So cool pack right here, very straightforward. Like I said before, 6 different seamlessly repeating patterns in a bunch of different formats. If you think you'll have use for these, be sure to pick them up this week while they're still free. Next up is DW Focus, a responsive WordPress theme. This is a responsive theme for WordPress, so it includes both the responsive friendly behavior that you come to expect with a modern website, as well as all the added features of WordPress, which means it's really nice for people leaving comments, and in general a very easy way to go in here and modify and add stories to this page. So this design overall, as you can tell, is really focused around the idea of an online news site or perhaps an online magazine where there's a ton of content to go through. And as you can see up at the top here and kind of below here, there are different sections that are numbered by the size of them, and these are very common ad sizes, so that's what those are here to reference. And I'll just scroll down to the bottom here so you can get a better idea of how this entire theme works. As you can tell, there is a lot going on. Like I said before, this is a very, very robust theme that should keep anyone busy for quite some time if they're building an online magazine or news site or whatever the case happens to be. I'll just go into business right here, then personal finance, and you can of course customize this entire header here so the navigation can point to whatever it is you want it to be. But as you can see, it lays out all the different articles right here. So if I were to go on the top one and click, it'll bring me to a page for that particular article. A nice big area for images and plenty of room for type as well as social sharing on the side here. There's an about the author section, and below that we have the comments section with just a nice name, email, and room to leave a comment right here. And just a couple other things I'm going to check out. All these sections are relatively similar when it comes to this. The layout is mainly the same, but it will change as you make this smaller or bigger since this is responsive. I think right now it's at the maximum setting, but as you get smaller and smaller, this eventually becomes a 1 article per line layout. But under features here, I'll go to article demo just so you can kind of see an example article right here with the large picture at the top, samples of the block quote right here, as well as different types of images and ways they can be linked off. And then it was just like it was before with the author info as well as comments. And the very last thing I'm going to show right here under features is typography, which just goes over a whole bunch of different layout options and different ways you can possibly style this site. So it is extremely customizable, and there are a ton of different features here built in from the beginning. So it goes over stuff like the headings, labels, badges, buttons, tables, pagination, and different options for the pagination, different types of block quotes right here, as well as a ton of different input types and even stuff like progress bars and a huge selection of icons. I think these are font awesome icons. I'm not 100% sure though. They could be custom, but they should be very easy for you to go in there and modify and kind of customize all the icons on this website to suit whatever your theme might be. And at the very bottom here is just a footer where you have all the different sections as well as an email option for a newsletter. And I'm assuming you can tie that into Constant Contact or MailChimp or whatever your mail service happens to be. But that's it for this theme. Like I said before, there's a ton of stuff to go in here and check out. So be sure to check out this page's live preview on the actual page linked in the description. If you want to go in here and kind of sift around the layout yourself, there's a ton of stuff. So it should definitely keep you busy for quite some time. But if you like this theme and you think you might have use for it, either now or in the future, be sure to pick it up this week while it's still free. Next up is 8 clean contemporary paper mockups. This is actually a pretty interesting item because it's a bunch of different mockups for paper, and as you can see right here, this paper is gridded, so it should be pretty easy for you to actually make sure everything lines up when you're overlaying your own images on top of these. And also, it might be a bit hard to see depending on the contrast of this video, but there's a bunch of different stationery items that are also in white, so they have a very minimal appearance when used in combination with the actual paper image here. And this paper image is fully customizable, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But there's 8 of these in total, so I'm going to quickly scroll through all the different options here so you can get a better idea of what you can expect. So there is quite a bit of versatility in terms of the layouts. Some of them, like this one, are extremely minimal, which is this little paper riser and then a white pen right here. And then some of them become a little bit more active, where this one has clips on the paper with a pen on the side and then some clips on the side right here. And there's also a few of them that have angles. And when you put your paper item in here, so it could be either a letter or even a tiny poster or something like that, if I double click on this, you can tell that the actual layout right here is flat, but once you apply to the item, it'll automatically take on this transformation to look like it's sideways at a perspective, kind of like this one right here. So this one's very similar to the one previously, just with clips on the top and then the clips on the side here. And 2 left to go, so here's another one with a very interesting angle on this particular paper, and then a few different white items in the background. Overall, just a very clean and minimal layout. And here's the last one where I actually implemented one of my own things. I just put my logo on this one. So to edit these, you just have to double click on this smart object layer that's in each one of these different layouts. And you can tell which layer it is pretty easily because it's the only one that's blue. So just double click on that. Then you can go ahead and insert your design or object into here. And I've already done that. But you can just go to File, Place, or even just drag and drop your images in here. Mine's a little bit pixelated because I sized it up quite a bit, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to save this by hitting Control S or Command S on a Mac, and then all you have to do is exit out of that smart object window that appeared. And as you can tell right here, it automatically applies this and it matches the angle of the object itself, and this looks very clean and very well done. But an extremely cool pack here for papers, and if you're running a design business or something else similar to that, where you're trying to go for a very minimal and very modern look, then these mockups should blend quite seamlessly with your website, which will be a pretty cool thing to see. Mockups like this, in my opinion, just help clients envision how their work will look in the real world just that little bit better. So if you think this is cool and you want to use this either in a current or future project, just be sure to pick it up this week. Next up is Resume CV Template 4-pack. This is a pack of cover letter, portfolio, and resume templates for InDesign, Illustrator, as well as Word. So I have a few of the ones from Illustrator opened up here, and there's a ton of them included with different color options and different style options, so I'm not going to show them all, but I will show enough to give you a really good idea of what to expect here. So this is the first color option, which uses grays, and this is the cover letter, and it uses a free font called Roboto, which is actually available from Font Squirrel. So there is a link in the download of this particular item to grab that font for free. It's a very nice and simplistic font that works pretty well on something like a resume or a cover letter. So as you can tell right here, there are some layout items that'll say change your picture. So right here you'd want to add in your own picture and then perhaps use this circle as a mask. And if I scroll down here, this is just the body of the content. And if I keep on going down here, there's room for a signature as well as your name. So very nice and very cleanly laid out cover letter layout right here. And here's the portfolio that goes with this particular cover letter layout. So on the portfolio, there's tons of room for different portfolio samples, as well as room for describing those portfolio samples. And below is room for references, which you can either choose to add or remove if you don't want to show those. And then social media links on the bottom here. And right here is a secondary portfolio option with a little bit different image layout options. The references, social media icons are the same, but if you look at the very bottom here, there's a new one on this particular one called Interests, where you can actually let people know different stuff that you might be interested in working more on or doing. And of course you can kind of customize these, or if you want to use just the icons on future projects, you could ungroup these and then use just this film icon, for example, on a different project altogether. If you want to do that, there are some pretty cool icons in this set that you can use in a manner similar to that. And here's the resume from this set. So right up the top here, you might want to change this to say profile instead of profil. I'll just change that really quick and then click off of that. But there's a profile where you can kind of explain yourself and what you like doing or what you're perhaps applying for, a contact section with all the information to contact you, room for experience and education as well as skills with these pretty nicely designed little sliders right here that you can kind of customize or move around once you ungroup them to kind of better describe where your skills are at. You'll just have to remember to either add or remove some of these different options right here to make sure everything is nice and smooth. As you saw, I had a little bit of trouble there at first, but it's pretty easy to modify once you're used to how this particular thing is built. And right here is a different resume option. So right here is the secondary color. So there are 4 different color options in total here that you can kind of use and modify, or you could perhaps just select one of these colors on the side right here. So I'm selecting this kind of cyan blue, and then you can go to select and then same and then fill color, which will select all the options right here that are this cyan blue color, and then you can double click on that color and change it to something else. So I'll just make this a very orange color really quickly right here and hit OK. And as you can tell, it's very easy to go in there and modify those colors. Just remember to change the actual stroke colors as well. As you can see right here, those are still in blue since those were not a fill, but that's also very easy to do. Just highlight that particular stroke and then do select same, and this time do stroke color, which is near the middle right here. And here's the last resume, and it's a different looking template. So this has a very solid colored background with white type over it, as opposed to a white background and then darker type on top of that. So there are a ton of different layouts and different color options included in this set. So be sure to check them all out when you're selecting the perfect resume or portfolio or cover letter template for yourself. There should be something in there for you. And of course, you can always modify these as much as you want to make them your own and kind of display what you think is the best parts about you as a designer or a photographer or whatever the case may be. But a cool pack included in a bunch of different formats, so whether you use Word, Illustrator, or InDesign, this set has you covered. And this is just a small section of what's included here, so if you want to see everything that's included in this pack, just download it this week while it's still free. And last up is Emily, which is a font. This font is provided in both OpenType as well as TrueType font formats, and I have the OpenType font opened up inside Adobe Illustrator here to show it. And as you can tell, it includes both lowercase as well as uppercase letters, and then you have the numbers 1 through 0 as well as a small handful of special characters. So I'll just zoom in on the letters on the top here and start with the lowercase letters so you can kind of see how these are rendered as a whole. It has a very rough and hand-drawn look to it while being a script font, so I'd assume this is modeled after someone's actual handwriting, although I'm not actually totally sure on that, but it gives me that kind of vibe of a very handwritten, hand-drawn font that was perhaps scanned in and then brought into a vector program and translated into a font. And here are the uppercase letters, all of which work very well in combination with the lowercase letters above. Everything looks very consistent and quite seamless as you actually go down here and scroll through everything. And here are the numbers 1 through 0. They also work very well with all the different uppercase and lowercase letters right here on the top, and then a small handful of special characters right here. If I highlight over this and go to type and then glyphs near the top here, you can see everything that's included. I didn't see a whole lot of different letters with special accented marks, so this is a pretty bare bones set in comparison to some of the other ones out there, but it should have everything you need, at least for English. And if there's other languages that you want to apply this to, you could always custom add your own accent marks in there as needed. And right here I typed up Free Goods Roundup so you can see how this looks typed up into a sentence. I think the stock kerning looks pretty good. Everything looks very evenly spaced, although typically when I'm dealing with something like a cursive font, I'd want these letters to actually connect. So if you want to make that happen, and at least a pretty easy way, you can go to Window, and then you want to go to Type near the bottom right here, and then have Character selected. And then inside the character window, there will be an option called Tracking, and it looks like VA with an arrow pointed left and right. And if you set this to a large negative number, like let's say -100, it starts making these letters connect and look more like an actual hand-drawn script font. You'll have to go in there and clean stuff up as needed or make small adjustments, but that's a really quick way to go in here and kind of make stuff look a little bit more actually hand-drawn as opposed to a font that's spaced out a little bit further. Stuff like this R to the E, you'd want to actually increase its tracking a little bit just to make that space visible once again. But a pretty cool font that has a very nice hand-drawn feel. It looks pretty authentic to me. I'd assume this is an actual hand-drawn font that was scanned in, like I said before. So if you do like this font and you want to use it on a project in the future, just be sure to pick it up this week. So that's it for this week's free goods, and do remember they are free this week only, so be sure to check out the description of this video where there'll be download links for each one of these 6 different free items. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please like and favorite, and if you want to see this video every week, please subscribe. This video is released every Monday to let you know it's free this week on Creative Market. Thank you for watching.